Hi, you're listening to Everyday Superpower, a place where you can take some time to learn to understand the benefits of reading body language and nonverbal communication. Quite simply, a great way to be able to communicate more efficiently, understand what people are saying without them even saying it. So you're essentially going to be able to read minds, whether they're lying to you, whether they're attracted to you, and so on and so forth, including the signals you put out into the world in a subconscious basis, and really be able to learn a real life superpower. If you enjoy what you hear and you want to continue learning about body language, click subscribe. Thank you. Right, so I bet you're excited. We've got another sexual one to talk about today. This one is Autoerotic Touch, okay? Subconscious self-touching, all right, in a state of arousal. We're going to say this is, well, we'll talk about going on a date, whether you're speaking to someone in a cafe across the counter, or generally just speaking to anyone. We're going to be talking about speaking to women in particular, okay, if they are attracted to you. So this can be seen as stroking the self, okay? It's a self-soothing and a self-touching behaviour, all right? So the body is stroked and petted in a way to produce a soothing effect, all right? Somewhat links to the pacifying behaviours and the soothing behaviours we experience as a child. So one common theme with these body languages is that they link to childhood. A lot of them do. So these self-soothing gestures and these self-touching gestures, they link to how we were touched as kids, all right? So obviously there's a sexual element to this, so we're not going to be adding this into the mix regarding the childhood aspect, but when an individual self-soothes and touches themselves, what it does is stimulates nerve endings which send positive, hormonal release to the brain. It feels good. So when an individual is stressed, including ourselves, subconsciously we'll have our own triggers as to where we'll touch certain places on our body, releasing positive feel-good hormones to fight against that stress, okay, to counteract against the negativity, all right? So that is the most of what's going on here. It's self-pacifying and self-soothing, but we're going to talk about the erotic side of things as well, all right? Once you look out for it, it'll be relatively easy to spot. You just need to really put your glasses on and make sure you are reading this correctly, and it's not a general response to anxiety, all right? It is anxious, but not a general just sort of, I feel a bit socially awkward talking to you situation. So let's talk about dating, yeah? In dating, women will self-stroke themselves in particular ways they'd like their partner or the person whom they are communicating with, i.e. you, to touch themselves, all right? And it works outside of conscious awareness. This may not even be a means or a matter of two people talking. This could purely be a woman thinking about someone she likes a lot by herself, and her fingers may wander and touch her neck, her wrist, the tops of her arms, so on and so forth, and stroke these particular areas in a slow and sensual way outside of her own conscious awareness whilst she daydreams about this individual, all right? So just to recap, it could rub lightly upon the upper chest, the wrists, all sensitive, submissive feminine areas, the thighs, so we could go from the outside to the inside of the thighs without even knowing, all right? The neck, which is incredibly vulnerable space, all right? Now, we've talked about how movement causes attraction and how our brains, for survival purposes, have to identify movement to ensure we're safe and nothing is potentially threatening. So if we are speaking to a woman and she starts to sensually rub the sides of her neck, she might not even know about it, but biologically speaking, she is sending sexual mating signals, all right? As a lot of this behaviour and a lot of our communications are sexually charged and come down to the end result, which is procreation of life. So women will use this self-stroking to create desire in men. Alright, so they'll touch themselves in ways they'd like their partner to touch them. Right? The movement creates attention. In attention, we have our eyes led to the feminine, sensual areas of the body. Okay? Right, so congruence is of the utmost importance when paying attention to body language. The mind is linked to the body and the body is linked to the mind. So if you are to start walking in a dominant manner with your chest out and your arms to your side, you're going to feel more dominant than if you're walking around with your arms closed, because your body is interlinked. All right, you could consider it muscle memory in a way. So when the individual is self-stroking on a subconscious basis, you can imagine it's congruent with the mind and the brain, and what the brain is experiencing at that moment in time is arousal, sexual arousal. Okay, so just to re-clarify, you need to pay heavy attention to the context and the cluster of behaviour that comes alongside this behaviour. All right, let's finish it off with a last example. You want to buy some bread and you go to the shop and you go to the bread counter, and there's a nice looking woman at the other side, and you speak to her and you say, "Hi, I'd like some bread." And she goes, "Well, what sort of bread?" And as you're thinking and you look at her, you see out of the corner of your eye, okay, and you've only managed to glance this because of the movement of the hand, all right, and our brain's being able to really heavily accentuate and concentrate on the movements of the hands in particular. She's rubbing ever so slightly the top of her wrist with her thumb, okay, in a very slow and circular manner. All right, so how do we approach that? Well, we think, right, so she's self-touching herself, which means that she's in some degree of stress, some degree of anxiety. Yes, she is, because she likes you, okay, and that can be stressful. Right, it's not an itch because she's not scratching or rubbing the area with the intensity of it being an itch. It's a slow, erotic, sensual movement on the wrist, which is ever so slight, and 99% of people won't acknowledge this of anything special, but you can identify it as sexual arousal in the face of you, okay, in response to your communication. She's looking at you and her body is reacting the way her mind wants to. She's sending out sexual signals because her body wants her to procreate with you, all right? And maybe, perhaps consciously, she's thinking, he's all right, or she's all right, or whoever's all right, okay? So it's very important to pay attention to. It can be bold and it can be very subtle. It's up to you to pay attention and take heavy consideration in what you're watching. Now, final note, I haven't spoken about men because I'm a man and I'm into women, and so I can speak more freely on my own experiences. But men in their own ways will do this as well. You know, we all touch ourselves to soothe ourselves and to regress into a childish state in response to stress. As far as the erotic aspect goes, I'm more than sure that we do it ourselves, all right? So thank you very much for watching. I hope you did enjoy, and that's me over and out. Press subscribe. Thank you.